Good evening, it's CryptoCoach365 day 131, for real this time. I miscounted yesterday, so today's 131, yesterday's was 130. Michael Tozoni here, excuse me. um, Second day at the let's see, Free State Blockchain Digital Asset Conference. I swear, it's like they tried to come up with the longest name they possibly could think of, which ended up taking the entire half of this side and half of that side of the lanyard. But yeah, Free State Blockchain Digital Asset Conference. Long day again. Very good day though. A lot of really good speakers today. Mostly talking about just different projects that they had going on. One person was talking about the issue with Ross Ulbricht. Ross was the person who founded Silk Road and was arrested for running it. And even though he essentially was running an online website, he ended up being sent to jail for 2 consecutive life sentences plus extra years on top of that. Totally unfair prison sentence based on what he did, and they basically railroaded him to as an example, hoping that punishing him that harshly will deter others from running websites like his. But of course, as soon as his closed down, like 10 others popped up because politicians don't get how the whole decentralized anonymous cryptography thing works. But yeah, conference was really good. Will Pangman and I talked a little bit more with regards to my project. He gave me a couple ideas to consider with regards to how to do security, because that's really one of the most important things to focus on, or to figure out, well, not figure out, but to build with regards to storing other people's money, especially crypto money, is how to keep it secure. Daniel Kravitz had an interesting, so this evening after the conference, there was a kind of a mini conference elsewhere at the local Bitcoin embassy of sorts, and the topic of that mini conference was the perfect or the ideal Bitcoiner. So it was him, Daniel Kravitz, Christy Rose, and Armin, and they were basically discussing the current issue where there is a fight going on inside the Bitcoin space with regards to the different blockchain forks that we have. So there's Bitcoin BTC people, Bitcoin Cash BCH people, and a couple other people, but they're not as relevant. Excuse me. But there's a lot of toxicity in this space with people, or is the very, very dedicated people, not the general people. Well, most people don't care, but the very dedicated people are really fighting each other hard over which fork is right, accusing the other of being scammers or crazy people or whatever. And unfortunately, quite a lot of the kind of the higher up or more important or more prominent people are getting caught up in this too, and picking sides to the point where they're even like blocking detractors and stuff. And it's I mean, core developers obviously are high profile people, and they're obviously biased toward the core fork. I mean, that's to be expected, but the rest of the people, it's kind of not so much. I mean, personally, I don't care. I'm good either way. Whichever fork wins, we're all better off. But even I've gotten like pulled into some of the arguments where people would kind of, let's say, disparage my intellect, to put it nicely, for believing certain things, or for not picking a side and not agreeing with them that the other side are like scammers or trying to steal people's money, which is like totally stupid. But whatever. Daniel had an interesting statement or interesting point that he made, in that the best, the act of investing is looking forward into the future, being able to predict what will happen in the future. I mean, it makes sense. Like when I buy my real estate properties, I buy them as investment properties because I expect that in the future they will either sell for more because I built them, or they will rent for more because they'll be worth more. When we buy Bitcoin, we buy it with expectation, looking into the future, that it will be more adopted and its price will go up. And really, it's any investment that you make. Like when you buy stocks, it's because you're looking into the future and you're expecting that the company's stock to go up. If you weren't, then you're just like be throwing money randomly, basically. So that's the point, is that you look in the future. But to be a better investor, you have to look into the future farther and farther. So the best investors are those who see very, very far in the future. And that definitely applies to me with regards to Bitcoin, because when I got into the whole space back in 2011, I was seeing Bitcoin back when it was worth almost nothing. Nobody accepted it. Nobody used it. Almost nobody knew about it. Like literally this group of us on the forum consisted of maybe 200-300 people. It was like almost nobody. And people, and I saw that this currency, like, and obviously people were kind of either, they weren't even making fun of us at that point. They were just dismissing us as like, what are you talking about? But I looked forward enough to see that Bitcoin will become the dominant cryptocurrency, eventually will become the dominant money, and will be widely accepted, and people will buy into it and use it as their kind of the safety store of value all over the world, like way back then, just because I understood what the technology would able to provide, what are the competitions, what are its unique selling propositions, so to speak, what kind of issues it might bump into, and whether they'd be able to resolve it or not. Obviously, as most of us, we didn't predict a lot of the different things that popped up, like mining pools were not really predicted. ASIC mining was not predicted. We all assumed it was going to be computers, possibly GPUs. And then forks, we all assumed forks, but we didn't really predict that there would be conscientious forks, so to speak. So we always knew that Bitcoin would need to upgrade, but we kind of assumed that there's going to be an upgrade, a fork will be scheduled, like say a year in advance. Everybody would agree that this is a good idea because it's an upgrade to fix problems. And then over the course of the year, everybody would slowly upgrade their systems to support the new fork or the new version of the software. So there'd be, the way that works is there's code that is added to the node software, but that code is, although it's there and it works, it's not activated until a certain block time. So you would figure that you'd need to have so many blocks between now and the future. So you say, okay, at this block, this code becomes active, and what will happen is this code will sit dormant on everybody's system, already there and ready to work. And as soon as this new block happens, everybody who has nodes or who has Bitcoin software will just automatically switch to the new code. The new code turns on and starts running, and nobody even notices that anything happened. Like, this has actually been tested and has happened in Bitcoin before, and most people don't know about it because it wasn't historically significant with regards to there's nothing really happened. Most people didn't even notice it. I mean, nobody actually noticed that anything happened other than those people who looked at the code and saw that, okay, this new code is now executing. Otherwise, Bitcoin was working like nonstop without any interruptions. So that's what we thought would happen with forks, that it would be planned in the future. Then in the future, this block would be hit, fork would happen, everybody switches, the old fork would go away, and nobody would care. So we didn't really predict the portion about that there might be fights between different forks, and now there's like 2 forks going, and there might be, well, there's more forks, but then more forks and more forks. And as people disagree, they will break off into their own fork, and as they kind of lose the argument, so to speak, their fork gets abandoned. Other than that, I mean, most of what I predicted in the future actually did happen. We are where we are with regards to Bitcoin adoption. The price is a lot more than, less than $10 or so when I started, and a lot more than a couple of pennies when people a couple of months before me got into it. And it's continuing on the trend as predicted. So at least in this case, I was able to see very, very far and make that prediction. But the other point that Daniel says is that good investors who see very far in the future will look like crazy lunatics to other people who can't see that far in the future, which again makes sense because you like back then when I was talking about this cryptocurrency, like this Bitcoin, which sounds funny, it sounds like it's two words, and people were writing bit space coin. And I was saying that it would take over the world and become like super valuable, and it's like the new internet, and is as much of an impact in the world as the internet is, if not more. Back when nobody knew about it, people were like, what the hell are you talking about? This thing is like, why are you putting all of your money into this thing? You're crazy. So yeah, and it's because the farther forward you look, the more changes you can predict, and then those changes are so radically different that they do not apply to the world we have right now. So generally, the farther forward you look, the more of a crazy person that other people will see you as. And good investors are those who, well, the main thing that he said is that good investors will not tell you what will not tell you about their investing secrets, so to speak. So your idea as an investor is you know something, you don't want other people to know about it, because if other people know about it, then they'll invest in it too, and they'll kind of dilute your own investment. So like a good investor is somebody who is kind of crazy, but doesn't really tell you much about what he does. So you can't really tell if he's crazy or if he's not crazy. And you don't know whether to take him seriously or not. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. I mean, with Bitcoin, it's a kind of, sort of, but on the other hand, obviously, like if I invest in Bitcoin and I hold Bitcoin, then obviously I want other people to invest in it too, because the more people invest in Bitcoin, the more adoption it gets. The more adoption it gets, the more valuable it becomes. The more valuable it becomes, the more value of my investment is too. So I make money by it's built into Bitcoin, which is again one of Satoshi's original ideas that he specifically stated, is that Bitcoin has an incentive for those people who have Bitcoin to get other people to use Bitcoin, because the more they get other people to use Bitcoin, the more valuable their own Bitcoin becomes. So like we make money by proselytizing, by telling people about Bitcoin, by teaching people how to use Bitcoin, and by building businesses to make it easier for other people to make Bitcoin. Including my big project, I'll be making money on just business and fees. Excuse me. But obviously the business itself and myself will also make a lot more money if we make Bitcoin a lot easier to use and convince a lot more people to adopt it. So in that sense, like I have this investment, it's Bitcoin, and I would be very happy to tell you about this Bitcoin thing, even though I might be crazy, or you might think I'm crazy. I'll tell you about this Bitcoin thing, and you should invest in it to make money. But obviously, on the other hand, I'm not going to tell you how much I have. I'm not going to tell you how much I benefit from it. And I'm not going to tell you when Bitcoin is going to hit its peak, basically. When a bubble hits the peak and then goes down, or when it hits the peak and then plateaus. Because Bitcoin growth adoption stage is going to be kind of bubble crash. But eventually, all technologies, they do the hockey stick thing. So it goes bubble crash, but eventually it kind of does like the giant rise, and then it slopes off. And it'll slope off because at some point everybody who would adopt it would have already adopted it. And it's all technologies like cell phones, televisions, cars. At the beginning, nobody really had it. They thought it was kind of crazy tech that, like, why would I have it? All of a sudden people realize more and more what it's about, and they all buy it, and then you get to this point and now everybody has it, and it just stays there, and it's only the very last kind of holdouts that end up buying it. So obviously I'm not going to tell you when the peak is, partly because I don't know, partly because as an investor, I don't want others to know either. So, and that's kind of the other point, that the final point that I made is that an investor that tells you what they're investing in and tells you their investment strategy and what to invest in and all that is probably an investor you shouldn't be trusting, because there may be a chance that they're actually telling you this to kind of trick you into investing in order to get more money from you. And this applies especially well to all the altcoins and ICOs and other stuff, and especially scammy stuff that people tell you, like, oh, you should invest into this coin because it's going to be great, it's going to go up in value, and we're going to make a lot of money. Reason you don't want to believe them is because there could be a chance that they bought a lot of this coin and they're just waiting for you to buy it up, so the price goes up before they dump it and leave you as worthless coins. So yeah, a great investor, as Daniel Kravitz says, is somebody who looks very far in the future, somebody who seems crazy, partly because they're in the future, but you're not really sure. And it's somebody who is not going to tell you about their investment because they want to be able to keep that investment for themselves. And other people who are, if people are very eager to tell you about their investment, then there's a chance that they're trying to kind of hide something or trick something or invest against you, so to speak. All that said, Bitcoin is still a good investment. At least I believe in it, and myself and many others, as I've seen this entire 2-day trip that I've been here, are still very, very committed to keep it going no matter what. And I am telling you this honestly, but so like buying Bitcoin, that's kind of a no-brainer. As regards to how much invest, when to invest, all of those, I mean, any time is good. I'm not going to tell you because I don't know, and I'm not going to tell you because if I told you, then you probably shouldn't believe me anyway. But anyway, just kind of an interesting little mind trick that he had. Hopefully the whole debate or the panel tonight will be put online, so I can put a link to it later. If not, well, you know, come to Bitcoin conferences. You'll learn a lot more that way in person than just even through me. So, and if you want to, I can actually take you to a Bitcoin conference too, if you're willing to kind of, you know, if part of my coaching that I'm thinking for the higher levels, not only will I teach you, I'll actually connect you. So, I mean, I'm a resource if you want it. Or if you just go to a conference and I'm there too, then like, you know, look me up. I'll probably be happy to hang out too. But anyway, tomorrow the long trip back home, and then back to real estate, I guess. So till then, tomorrow, see you guys tomorrow. Good night.